For me, what I want to spend my life doing is seeing a change in our world in which people don't have to go through what they go through today when you say goodbye too soon. Seeing a change in our world, people don't have to go through what they go through today when you say goodbye too soon.
Politicians, celebrities and CEOs invent and repeat buzzwords and slogans that the people who look up to them then start using and presupposing in conversations, online as well as offline. Many people don't care if the politicians, celebrities and CEOs they look up to believe what they say, or even if what they say is true, historically, scientifically and logically. To them, truth is secondary. What matters is how the buzzwords and platitudes make them feel. If the words make them feel good and hopeful, they buy the message. Elizabeth Holmes took advantage of this fact. In light of Elizabeth's latest shameless attempts to fish for sympathy, it's important to be aware of the signs of deception. Deception is an integrated part of psychopathic people like Elizabeth. They can't change, and they don't want to change either. Let's look at her interview with Fortune to observe her psychopathic way of imitating a successful CEO and motivational speaker.
She is the youngest person to ever get the Horatio Alger Award. It's a big deal. Why is it a big deal to you?
Well, I appreciate that. It's a really big deal to me because it's an opportunity to connect with so many young people, especially in classrooms across the country, and especially with my background, little girls who hear a lot of people come in and talk to them, but maybe don't get to hear from, I consider myself, young women who have really pursued science and engineering and business and have the opportunity to talk with them about what's possible and what we can do and the pursuit of excellence in science and engineering especially, and that yes, that's something that's cool and something that they can excel in, and share a little bit of my experience as a little girl growing up in this country.
She says she's really pursued science, engineering and business. However, leaving Stanford during her sophomore year and neglecting to specify what she means by the generic terms science and business suggest otherwise. What Elizabeth does instead is a far more effective deceptive tactic. She appeals to people's emotions as if she sees and hears them. With her advice about excelling, it's presupposed that she's excelled, and it's presupposed that she's a role model. Thus, this is self-praise. She pretends to care about the audience by leaning forward with accommodating hand gestures, imitating a conversation, as if she were sitting in front of each one of the audience members.
All sorts of tests on that single drop of blood.
That's right.
Was there a major fork in the road where you could have gone one direction and you went the other?
I think there's a billion forks all the time, and you have a vision, you have a mission. For me, it was finding what I'm just so incredibly passionate about in life, and when you find that thing, then it's a question of going down 1,000 different paths to get to your end point, no matter how you have to go to get there. And so
the psychological reason why psychopaths find it easy to lie is because they have no conscience. They don't care who they lie to or what they lie about, as long as it benefits them. However, lying is stressful for the brain, and stress manifests itself physically in form of stammering, sweating, etc. This makes it possible to detect. So psychopaths have to find a way of lying without it causing too much visible stress. Thus, the linguistic reason why it's easy for them to lie is because they seemingly tell the truth. But it's only afterwards that we're able to see that this truth had different undertones that only the deceptive person knew about at the time. Let me exemplify what I mean.
Was there a major fork in the road where you could have gone one direction and you went the other?
I think there's a billion forks all the time, and
The far too trusting interviewer thinks that Elizabeth is only talking about her difficult road to success. However, when Elizabeth says there's a billion forks all the time, she's not merely talking about this road to success. She's talking about what her grand-scale deception has caused her to feel, because of course pretending to be someone you're not is exhausting. So, as we see then, she grants herself a linguistic space where she can satisfy the interviewer by answering her suggestive questions, but also tell her own thoughts, her own truth, so to speak. And it offers her a less stressful way of deceiving without telling direct lies. We see it again here.
1,000 different paths to get to your endpoint, no matter how you have to go to get there. And so...
No matter how you have to go to get there, she says. Once again, the interviewer and the audience think that she's just talking about her career, but in reality she's telling the truth about how she doesn't care if she has to deceive people in the process of getting what she wants. Thus, Elizabeth relishes in the knowledge she has, but that she knows other people don't have. And the only reason we're able to see that is because she was caught. There are many frauds out there that haven't been caught.
As you're saying this, it is enforcing in my mind that you did not start with an idea like, oh, we can make a wearable patch that will do this, or we can draw blood much more efficiently. You actually started with a very ambitious mission, which is to change the way diagnosis and therapy takes place.
The interviewer is saying it without saying it, and most importantly, without realizing it, that Elizabeth's ambitions sound too good to be true. She even says that Elizabeth's big plan is enforced in her mind. Still, she's not able to realize that she's being lied to. People like big ideas, sensations, and success stories. So much so that they're willing to abandon critical thinking. The people who make the wildest claims and have the most charisma are given the biggest platforms, no matter how much they lie about who they are. This is true for almost all areas where money-hungry frauds have an easy time telling people what they want to hear in the most emotional way possible, even when they claim to be highly rational. Money is the one thing that people in general respect. When a person makes a lot of money, they are much more likely to be given a platform, and the interviewer is in awe of Elizabeth's success.
So tell me if I have these numbers right. Elizabeth has raised more than $400 million. The company is valued at, the company that she started at 19 is valued at $9 billion. You own over 50% of it, right? Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
When we did the story in June, you had 500 employees.
Yeah.
What do you have now?
We're over 700.
The interviewer has replaced common sense with admiration of money and status, which makes it easier for someone like Elizabeth to perform her generic, unoriginal narratives while tapping into people's emotions. Let's watch.
You actually started with a very ambitious mission, which is to change the way diagnosis and therapy takes place.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think people talk a lot about starting companies, and I'll talk with people sometimes and they'll say, oh, I want to start a business. And my question is always, why? Because there's got to be a mission. There's got to be a reason that you're doing it, that no matter how hard it is, you want to keep doing it over and over and over again because you love it. And for me, what I want to spend my life doing is seeing a change in our world in which people don't have to go through what they go through today when you say goodbye too soon. And so...
Not only is she imitating male CEOs with her posture and voice, but she's also playing the part of a much older person, allegedly asking why to people who want to start up their own companies, even though her own reason, making a change in the world, is about as deep and heartfelt as a fortune cookie. This is how Elizabeth likes to start her answers, giving a general overview before getting to how she feels and thinks specifically. This gives her more time to think about her answer, finding the best possible response in a given situation. She did the same in another interview with Fortune. In that interview, it had a much more obvious, evasive function.
In retrospect, when you look at where you are today, one test with the prick of blood, wasn't that going too far?
So we have developed hundreds of tests over the course of the last 12 years that can run a tiny sample using proprietary Theranos technology. And part of when I talk about communicating, what we need to do is we need to get that data out there. And I've talked publicly over the course of the last couple of weeks that we've made a decision now to take the data that we've generated for our FDA submissions and put it into the public domain, and we will. But since you're focused on the one test, let's talk about why we're doing that.
She says,
Let's talk about why we're doing that.
if she really wanted to talk about this one test, she could have done it to an initially. Instead, she doesn't mention the test until much later. This shows us that the preceding utterances are attempts to postpone the talk about the one test. There's also a hint of criticism of the interviewer.
Since you're focused on the one test,
She doesn't want him to focus on the one test because she doesn't want it to be the focus. Therefore, her final words
let's talk about why we're doing that.
fall flat because all her preceding utterances have revealed that she doesn't want to talk about it. In this interview, she provides an emotional reason for wanting to change the world.
People don't have to go through what they go through today when you say goodbye too soon.
An emotion cell.
And so then it's a question of operationalizing it and tuning it and changing it and being really good at change so that you can get to that end game, because nothing ever works out the way you think it's going to. You just have to leverage those moments and turn them into what you want them to be. Right?
Being really good at change, she says. Again, Elizabeth lies by using the knowledge she has, but that no one in the audience has. They think she's merely talking about her accomplishments, but in reality, this is an admission of how she deceives people. By constantly changing to sound like a man, like a humanitarian, and like a much older person. This chameleon-like trait is also psychopathic. With the words,
leverage those moments and turn them into what you want them to be. Right?
she, unbeknownst to the audience, lets them know about her self-serving way of looking at the world, turning moments into how she wants them to be. When we combine this statement with the previous statement about achieving success, no matter how you have to go to get there, we get an idea of Elizabeth's ruthless personality trait. The audience questions reveal how easy it's been for Elizabeth to deceive the audience.
We have a question up here. The mic is coming.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Navrina Singh from Qualcomm. You're clearly very passionate about changing the world through your new company. But I was wondering, what keeps Elizabeth up at night if you sleep? And how do you go about tackling that?
Well, I don't sleep very much.
How many hours do you get a night on average?
I sleep about 4 hours. Yeah.
How many hours do you get a night on average?
I sleep about 4 hours. Yeah.
She wears the smile like a mask, even when maintaining eye contact with the interviewer to see if she buys it. The next passage is a prime example of how people want to believe statements that sound good, no matter how unoriginal, contrived, and superficial they are. Feelings prevent people's critical thinking, which is what psychopaths thrive on.
You know, I feel like the luckiest person in the world every day because of what I get to do. And right now, building this company is about building people and really investing in building the people from within our company. So I spend as much of my time as humanly possible focusing on getting and building the right people, because that's how we realize this mission and how we realize this dream. So I don't think I could be possibly kept up more than I already am on that one.
When people say contrived things about building businesses by building people, their facial expressions are supposed to match these emotional words. Instead, we see Elizabeth saying this as if she's trying to memorize a script, completely unemotional. That's another thing to look for in influential people. Do their pathos-appealing words match their facial expressions? Psychopathic people are able to say emotional, contrived statements without the expected emotions to go with them.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. Last night, I had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just ran over by the kids running in the door and just like barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here.
When she speaks hyperbolically and says that she spends as much time as humanly possible on building the company, she's partly right. She does spend much time, not on building the company, but on pretending that she actually has a company that's worth being called a company. One of the obvious ways she lies is through self-repairs.
I had the privilege of getting what I needed. I'm an engineer. I was in the engineering school there to be able to do this, and I hit that moment where I was very clear that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So that was it. Right? I'm an engineer. I was in the engineering school there.
First, she says she's an engineer, but then she makes a restart, a self-repair, saying she was in engineering school, which is different from having the degree. Thus, she herself points to the engineer thing to be a sensitive issue. As a way of answering indicates internal stress. This stress is further underlined by her sudden inclusion of the expression "you know," which exposes a sudden self-awareness. At this point, though, the interviewer isn't listening. She's much too carried away by all the buzzwords and superficial statements, which tells us a lot about her priorities.
2 former senators and retired military officers at a very high level. It's a fascinating board. You still don't have any women on the board, right? Well, yeah, okay, all right, okay.
I count.
Beyond you. Is that on your? Okay, that's on your list.
Psychopathic people thrive on softball interviews, and in a bigger perspective, looking at the answers Elizabeth is allowed to get away with and the praise she gets for saying the right things and having money, I think this casts doubt on many people who win awards and prizes and are called good people. If people were happy to applaud an obvious fraud like Elizabeth, who else are they willing to applaud? Like and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.